Good day, beloved. I'm coming to you this day to expose the word of the Lord to us that I believe will help us as we grow in our Christian faith. I want to speak to us in this series of teachings on the heroes of the Bible, especially the unsung heroes of the Bible. The first character I'll be looking at today is a person called Methuselah. For most of us, Methuselah is this person that we normally make fun of, and the only thing most of us know about Methuselah was his age. Apparently, he was one of the persons that lived the longest on earth. But it will shock you to realize that Methuselah was one person that was very, very critical to the program of God on earth. The first mention of this man was found in Genesis chapter 5 from verse 21. The Bible says, and Enoch lived 65 years and he begat Methuselah. And the next verse said, and Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah. And he walked with God for 300 years and he begat sons and daughters. Now the issue is this. For 65 years, Enoch lived on earth and nothing significant happened in his life. Nothing significant happened in his life. But the year he gave birth to Methuselah, he had an encounter with God. Something triggered a response from Enoch. And Enoch, more or less like we can say, got born again. His encounter with God is tied to a person, and that person was Methuselah. And so, what exactly did Methuselah do that made Enoch to start working with God? What happened that could have triggered such a 180 degrees change in the life of his father? Now, we have clues in the Bible here and there, and I want us to quickly just examine some of these clues as we go on. The first thing has to do with the translation of his name. One particular theologian said the name is actually more like a prophetic warning. It was tied to a prophetic warning. And it was that name was associated with judgment. And immediately he was born, his father had to restructure his whole life so that he would not be caught on the wrong side of God. More or less, it was as if Methuselah was the person who became a timepiece of God here on earth. He was walking on earth as a timepiece of God. And unfortunately, majority of people did not recognize that. Majority of people just kept on relating with him as a normal man. But when you look at the way things in the Bible went, you realize that God was very accurate. The first thing you realize that Methuselah lived for 969 years. 2 years before the flood came on earth. 2 years. So you could say that he died and judgment came shortly thereafter. So it was okay for his father to have sorted himself out and lived a godly life. Historians also say that he was probably a fighter of righteousness. There was a character in the Bible that people know, Nimrod, who was mighty before God and who was a terrible hunter before God. But people said that it was actually Methuselah, the descendant of Seth, the other righteous lineage. Nimrod came from the lineage of Cain. He was so wicked before God that Methuselah had to kill him. He was a warrior of righteousness. He fought for righteousness. And you could imagine all the time that God was talking to Noah, Methuselah was alive. And so Methuselah was more like a discipler to Noah. He would have been the one who would have been speaking to Noah because, of course, Noah was his grandson. Like we realized that Jacob just did not come out of the blues to become that patriarch of God. No, he was with his grandfather, and his grandfather taught him a lot about who God was. And so we find out that Methuselah, even though he was the longest, more or less, living human being, he played a very, very critical role in the program of God. Because without him, there would have been no warning or timepiece for men on earth. Unfortunately, majority of people did not pay attention to him. They just took it normally for granted and just continued their lifestyle. Until that time, judgment came and there were no more. So I want us to appreciate a man like Methuselah, who played his own role in the scheme of God. I wonder what you are doing with your own time. I wonder what you are doing with your own purpose on earth. This man played out his own purpose, and as far as God was concerned, he fulfilled it. He was not a CEO of any company, but his job was simply to be a timepiece. And once he finished his work, God was okay with him. I trust that this word will have blessed you, and it will have helped you to appreciate your purpose here on earth. Have a nice day. We'll see you next time.